Because the law knows that the potential of your intellectual property is so enormous. But if you now decide to give it out for a pot of porridge, do you understand?
Yes.
And that is why the same person can charge $1 million for something. Another person can charge 200,000. It's even something you can will. Yes, you can actually will your. It's an intangible asset. In fact, albeit even stronger than the tangible.
I see.
Because your houses can get burnt. Your houses can get burnt, but your creativity. I mean, once it is stored, once it is, and nowadays where you have various storage, it could be in on drive, it could be somewhere, Once you can retrieve it, you can monetize it.
Yeah. What's up? Welcome to Creative Money, a podcast dedicated to helping artists, innovators, and dreamers transform their passions into lucrative ventures. I'm your host, Munachi Abi, and today we will be talking about intellectual property. My guest today is Nsakare Uwadiaye Esquire. He is the managing partner at G Law Firm Lagos and the founder of Nigeria's first intellectual property radio station, IP Radio. A distinguished corporate and commercial lawyer, he specializes in intellectual property, advertising, media, and entertainment law. Sayo, welcome to Creative Money.
Thanks for having me.
Nice to have you here. I'm actually very excited to have this conversation with you because we were having a brief conversation before the camera started rolling, and you asked me a bit about my background in modeling and asked me if I owned my rights. So I want us to start the conversation by getting to know what it is that is intellectual property. What is intellectual property?
Okay, intellectual property relates directly to the creation of the mind. It relates to originality, authorship, something that was created from a lot of energy. Energy has been exerted by you to bring that thing to fore. Right. And intellectual property is a legal right for the originator and the author to exclusively control the use of his intellectual asset, albeit intangible asset. So intellectual property is an intangible asset as different from physical assets. But the good thing about intellectual property is that it is transnational. And that is why you see a company like ShopRite just bringing their name. I'm sure they brought their shopping mall from South Africa. They only brought their name. Right. And that's a trade name, that's a trademark. So basically it enables people to determine how their creativity is used and exhibited, and enables them to commercialize and monetize their creative efforts. So that basically, in a nutshell, is what intellectual property is. It is ubiquitous, which means that it permeates every area of human endeavor. Everything we are using here, somebody has the intellectual property. Right. Everything, including the AC, including the cameras, belong to somebody. The person doesn't have to be physically with us, but he can benefit from it, either via licensing or whatever form of appropriation. So that is why we call it an intangible asset. But I say with all sense of, without any sense of fear or favor, that in my own view, it's even more tangible than the tangible asset. It has more commercial value than the tangible asset. It lasts longer than the tangible asset. Your factory can be burnt down, but your brand name can never be burnt down. Yeah. And that is why I champion intellectual property.
And what happens when someone uses your intellectual property without giving you any type of compensation?
Well, the question you have asked is, the fact is that you let me start from the point of view that intellectual property, let me say, does not necessarily protect ideas, but it protects the expression of your ideas. And that is why you can see a particular original work being used for movies, being used for books, being used for anything.
Right.
So what intellectual property does is that how have you expressed your work? And so once you have expressed your work, and like I said, it falls into various categories. You have copyright, you have trademarks, you have industrial designs, you have patents. Copyright protects artists and people essentially in the creative
industry,
sector. Yes,
right.
artists, musicians, entertainers, sound recording, and all that stuff. Then trademarks protects logos, symbols, trade names. Patent protects innovation and inventions, while industrial designs protect the look and feel. For example, this glass, the look and feel is what industrial that is protected in that industrial design protects that, such that whoever designed this has the exclusive ownership. So for it to be used, you have to take permission. For example, if you want to produce it, you have to take permission from him.
Okay.
So directly to your question, it will be an anomaly, illegal, for somebody to have spent time doing research and have come up with such thing, and you just sit there in one corner and start to make it without his knowledge. It is illegal, and you will have to pay for damages if you are found out, and it could even lead to some kind of criminal impact.
Okay.
In terms of it can be, and it's criminality.
Right.
That's criminality.
So
yes.
Thank you for elaborating on that. I will use this glass as an example again.
Yes.
This is a product that was created.
Yes.
So I imagine there is a patent for it, as well as the industrial design.
Yes. More of industrial design.
More of industrial design.
Yeah.
So for someone to create something like this, do they have to register the product, the patent, the copyright, the logo, all of those things? Do they have to?
Yes, well, some intellectual property requires registration for you to be able to enforce your rights.
Right.
Some don't.
Okay.
For example, copyright, your intellectual property or your copyright protection jumps on your creation once you express it, which means that once you create, you are an author of, let me say, a movie.
Okay.
I mean, you write the scripts, you are the creator of the
story.
So it automatically becomes yours.
Right.
I mean, so, but we always advise as lawyers that you register it so that it forms like a public record of your ownership, your authorship, the fact that you are the original creator.
Okay.
So that in that wise you are able to stop people from using it. But for copyright, it jumps on it automatically.
Okay.
But we advise that you have a public record.
Okay.
I mean, you register it with the Copyright Commission, and that registration forms like a prima facie evidence of your ownership. For trademarks, yes, it's also very important that you register your trademarks with the trademark registry.
Okay.
For patents, likewise the same. For industrial design, the same. But there is a particular form of intellectual property that does not necessarily require registration, and that is trade secrets.
Trade secrets.
Yes, which has to do with confidential business information, which has to do with that information that makes you have a competitive edge. For example, like Coca-Cola.
Right.
Yes, Coca-Cola has been able to protect the brand strictly from using trade secrets.
Okay.
And very few people in Coca-Cola even know
the secret, the formula.
Your formula and everything.
Yeah.
So that basically is trade secret. So some require registration, some really don't. But we advise that for those that require registration, it is better you register it so that it doesn't become a shouting match.
Right.
There is government record to show that this belongs to you.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So for a brand like Coca-Cola, so there are aspects of it that are registered, but then there's a part of it that isn't, which is the trade secret.
I just said the trade secret is not registered. So if the trade secret because one thing about trade secrets is that the moment it's a trade secret as long as it doesn't become public. So the moment it becomes public,
it's no longer a trade secret, right?
So at times it's good to hide under that because as the law evolves, some of these things, let me say, the ones that are registered are tenured. Do you understand? So once the tenure expires, it goes into the public domain. Right. And when it goes into the public domain, anybody can have access to it.
Can't you renew?
That's why it is renewable, but eventually it will still get into the public domain.
Yeah.
So you can imagine how many times Coca-Cola have been renewing since they started. At the point, it will get into public domain. So that's why they just say, no, we want to keep our recipe. So we are not registering our recipe. But all the bottle and all that stuff.
That's been registered.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I understand that. So as creatives, as artists, do we also need to have trade secrets? Is it okay for us to have trade secrets? Or do we, and I speak as an artist, a 360 artist, meaning painters, musicians, filmmakers, and authors, and the likes of those type of creatives.
Well, I think what I would advise artists is to situate their intellectual property within copyright.
Within
copyright and trademarks, but essentially copyright. Okay. Because it stops people from adapting. If you have the copyright over your original work or work of authorship, it stops people from adapting, from imitating, from doing anything, broadcasting, from doing anything with it without your permission. And most creative people, fall within. Most artists.
Artistic expressions
fall within that.
Copyright.
Yes, but that doesn't mean you can also obtain trademarks for your name. So you can also, if you can meet the requirement for trademark, you can trademark your name, which means that if anybody wants to use your name,
they have to come to you.
And there are also some other rights like publicity rights and image rights. If you are a popular artist, somebody cannot just use your photograph
without your consent.
So there are various forms of.
So how do you register those ones? Like an image rights type situation, do you have to still put it under the copyright law?
That for most of the, like I said, most of the creative works are under copyright. And so you register them with the copyright commission. Yes. For example, if you publish a book, because what copyright does essentially is to capture the features, to capture the metrics. So you write a book, you have chapters, you have things that delineate your books from other books. So that particular book belongs, the way that book is written belongs to you. So you can see cases, I'm just trying to share information, you can see cases whereby somebody had to pull down a video on YouTube, pull down something from YouTube because it looks clearly like the other. I'm not saying that, but it looked clearly like what somebody else had done. And so if you put it side by side, it was very clear that somebody had done this, somebody had seen this, and based on that, somebody now wrote this, and it was just reasonable. So that's what I'm saying now, that copyright more or less protects the metrics, protect the features. So this is the feature of this table this is an artistic table. It has, so if somebody else comes and copies these features too, then it means it's infringing on it.
So Yes, in an event where, because ideas are not, they don't solely belong to one person. In a situation whereby a lot of people have had the idea, but then somebody has executed and copywritten it, but then someone else in another side of the world who hasn't seen your artistic expression still gets the same idea and executes it. How would that play out in terms of copyright infringement, and how do you settle
We are
that?
going into trans-border, but it's fine. But you see, one thing I normally say, and I mean, if let me give a typical example for you to understand. If an object is placed in front of 3 cameramen or photographers, they are not likely to take it the same way.
The same way.
Because it now has to do with your own perspective as the cameraman. Some will take it from one angle, some will take it from another, some will even take it with some form of light, depending on your experience. So the fact that copyright protects the expression. So it's not about the idea. It's not about the idea. Anybody can have an idea that something should jump on the tree and we should take photograph. But what copyright protects is that how is that rendered? Most times it is not always the same. Most times it's not, even though the subject matter can be the same, but the way it is expressed can be. And that's why you see musicians can sing a song on love and probably even talk about that type of love, but the way they will sing it will be different because it's only his own interpretation of love that he will sing. So if we say somebody has an idea of love, following what you have said, so we all have ideas of love, but the way we express the love will be different. But if I have expressed it somehow and you now want to also use my own expression of love, then you must seek permission. And that is why you see that people do cover. People do cover. There's nothing wrong in saying I like this song. I can even add 1 or 2 things to it, But you have to approach me to say, I saw this your song, I like it. I want to do a cover for it. Give me permission to do a cover. And you give, and both of you agree on how to share the proceeds. So that is it. But in terms of cross-border, really, intellectual property is territorial. What does that mean? It means that if you have intellectual property protection in Nigeria,
it doesn't protect you.
It doesn't necessarily govern the intellectual property in Canada.
I see.
So it is because we have our own laws, we have domesticated those laws, and we have some peculiar things about those laws, about how we want our intellectual property to be run here. But generally, intellectual property has multi-country similarities, but that is not to say that you can just pick our Copyright Act and go and use the same
over there. So how crucial is it for an individual in the creative field how crucial is it for them to understand the importance of intellectual property?
Well, the fact is that many years ago, it was just that I was just expressing my passion, I was just enjoying myself. But over the years, the same people who they just saw that you see many of them dying, many of them not even having anything to even feed their family. They now have to start begging and everything. So the awareness for every creative person now to see it as something that is very, very sustainable has come into place now. And as you can see, the creative enterprise is beginning to receive a lot of investment to ensure that it becomes at par with global standards. And they are also trying a lot to make money from it. But you have to be very intentional. You have to be very intentional. And so I always tell people that once the thing leaves your head and it gets into a medium that can be, from where it can be transferred, that is where your intellectual property begins the journey. So as long as it's still in your head and is only known to you. You are creating it, you are originating it. But when you transfer it to a laptop and somebody steals your laptop, it's gone. Or you write a script and you send it to somebody and you don't have strict intellectual property rules that show that that person cannot use it without your authorization, it's gone. So I think that artists should be very, very intentional. That, and I always say it, even from the creative background I come from, that the oil of creativity runs dry. And that's why you see that at a younger age or at a particular time, you're able to create at a point you can't even create again. No matter as much as you want to try, you just discover that if you're a really creative person, you discover that it's not the same. It's not the same. So I always tell every artist to see that anything you are creating now is the last. So if this is the last of my creativity, how do I make sure that I earn money from it throughout my lifetime? And that is why you need to protect the intellectual property. And you can see Fela died several years now, but you can still see his family still benefiting from his legacy, intellectual property. Even now you have houses, you have museums, you have celebration, you have all those things. Those are the things that intellectual property does. Copyright specifically. It's even something you can will. Yes, you can actually will your. It's an intangible asset. In fact, albeit even stronger than the tangible. I see. Because your houses can get burnt. Your houses can get burnt, but your creativity, once it is stored, and nowadays where you have various storage, it could be on drive, it could be somewhere. Once you can retrieve it, you can monetize it.
Yeah.
I had a friend some years back. His father used to be a musician, and he approached me. He brought his father's catalog of music, and by then we threw it out there. A lot of people, so I could imagine maybe some of the houses could have been sold, some we have even had cases, they could be having issues with physical property. Yeah. But at least they could sell the intellectual property to be able to revive the family fortune. So it is an asset that can be willed. It is an asset that can also be enjoyed in terms of commercial value and monetization while you are alive.
Yes, I see. Yes. That's very interesting. So, sir, I wanted you to give us one or two examples of perhaps a high-profile conflict or dispute that happened in the creative industry that highlights the importance of intellectual property and why people need to get their intellectual property registered.
Okay, there have been several, but I'm sure you recall that there was not too long ago, there was a telecom company that somebody sent in a proposal on what to do with, we call it under value added, had to do with color tunes and some stuff like that. And the telecom company decided to use it without recourse to the guy. And the guy went to court, and he won the case, and he was awarded several millions of naira. So he just sat down and said, look, there are better ways we can use this thing. Let's introduce some form of color tunes that would endear the brand to you. But the telecom company probably felt that, the way we do now.
Yeah.
Said, maybe it's just a small.
Yeah.
So maybe he talked to people like us, and they said that it's not like that to show us proof that you are the originator. Show us proof that how you sent it, when you sent it. Yeah. And at the end of the day, they went to court. Also, and there have been several cases whereby you discover that there have been several cases where you see, you also note even some videos, there were issues with some what we call some videos and that remember the undercover story when somebody went to do an undercover story, but he was assigned to do that by his by publishing house.
Okay.
So after she completed the assignment, and everybody thought the thing had been put to bed.
She gave a report.
Yeah, the publishing house now went to shoot a film from it.
Oh.
Yes, and so what I'm trying to say this is that once you are involved in a creative process like an artist, your let's say for example, you just design something on a sheet of paper. That something you design can be used for a card.
Yeah.
It can be used for a vase.
Yeah.
It can be used for anything. It can be used for cutting.
Okay.
But it took you some time
to come up with
that.
Yeah.
And so the ramifications of the expression of whatever creativity you have is what your intellectual property covers.
Yeah.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
And I want to say it unequivocally that our copyright law doesn't allow you to say you have paid me. Yes, that okay. I commissioned you to do this, except in the case of the media industry. Right. But generally, it just says that I've told you to do something. You understand? A creative, or maybe you work with an advertising agency, or you work with a creative agency, or you do anything. Yes, the fact that I have paid you, or the fact that I have paid you, does not transfer my intellectual property
rights to you.
There has to be an agreement that says, for the period you work with me, or for this thing you are doing for me, once you have completed it, the intellectual property belongs to me.
Yeah.
Without that agreement, even if the person pays 1 billion naira, the law doesn't recognize that.
Okay.
Because the law knows that the potential of your intellectual property is so enormous. But if you now decide to give it out for a pot of porridge, do you understand?
Yes.
And that is why the same person can charge $1 million for something, another person can charge 200,000. I have seen somebody who sold a script of a TV series, and by the time I met him, he was a destitute, and he sold a TV series in Nigeria about I think it was in the 1990s to somebody
for peanuts.
He was hungry. He sold it, and the person executed the business. Executed the TV series, got sponsors, and built several hotels.
Wow!
From it,
wow.
The same TV series. But you see, in Nigeria, the way we do our things is that you just believe that. So I'm a gifted scriptwriter, so
I can write more.
I can write. So even at that time, he brought another script to me, and he was almost selling it like that too. And I said, you haven't learnt your lessons. He would say, okay, it's not about lesson, it's about
you need to eat. So I have a question for a person like that, an artist. How does he go about securing his intellectual property rights? Does he do it before he hands over the script to whoever it is that is commissioning him for that? Or does he make the person that is commissioning him sign a contract?
Like I said, it depends. If there are script writers that just sit in their homes, they observe what is happening in the environment, and they come out with a script.
Yeah.
They don't. I know some professional script writers. They are not even interested in shooting the film. They just write scripts and you pay them.
Yeah.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
So if you are going to approach if I write a script, I will copyright it. I will make sure that I own the copyright.
Yeah.
Then I can now look for who is interested in shooting or producing, and I will sell it to him at premium, because I know the moment I sell that to him, if it is my intention that I'm not going to make any money again, and I don't want to control how he or she expresses it, whether he now takes my scripts and write into a book, write into a documentary, makes a film out of it, that's his own business. So he pays me for the script.
Right.
That is if I independently generate it. But if somebody tells me and commissions me to write a script,
Right.
exactly, I will also write the script, but I will let the person know that in my agreements with the person, if depending on the side I am, I will definitely, for example, if I'm on the side of the person who commissioned another person, my agreement will state clearly that irrespective of the financial whatever, that the script belongs to me because I commission. But without that express agreement, the fact that I'm just paying him doesn't mean that. But it has to be there.
It has to be written.
It has to be written that because there are several ways people do it. Some of them even have arrangements with people, producers and everything, production houses that says that a certain percentage will be coming to you as maybe if it's a musical work now, that as we sell, as we go on road trials, as we X percentage would come to you. But that's if you want it. If you don't want it, I mean, you probably will not have control over what comes in and what comes out. You don't want to get into that.
Right.
Okay, don't pay me for my script.
Service,
But what is important in this discussion is that there must be an agreement, and it has to be written. It's not oral.
Right.
And there are several ways a creative person, you can license it. You can license out your whatever you have
expressed.
created. You can license it.
Okay. So for an artist, a music artist, if you've written a song with, say, your friend years ago, and they've gone on to record the song and do great things with the song, but you wrote the song, and they've written themselves in as the writer of these songs, and you didn't have any type of agreement based on friendship, you wrote this and you let it go, then they've gone on to flourish with it. Can you go back and dispute that and say, okay, we both know I wrote this song, I need compensation for the work that I did for you at so and so time, and I need my name to be in your royalties or copyright? Is that something that can be done, or is that something that would be disputed or taken to court? How does one resolve that type of situation?
Okay, if four of us came together and we wrote a song,
yes,
I told you that copyright jumps on it for everybody that there's evidence that he was part of it. So automatically you are a co-owner
of that song.
So, but if after that time you now had an agreement with them for whatever reason, maybe you say, I don't want to be part of this stuff again, or I don't want to pay me X amount of money. But without that, without the fact that, and even that there must be an agreement to say, okay, one of us has decided to go away, and for that we have agreed, and he has signed that whatever he has in form of his copyright in that, you understand, has been taken away. It's now resident with the remaining three. So if he has written that type of agreement, he can't come back. But in the absence of that agreement, it's part and parcel. And there's something you will also call moral rights in intellectual with regards to copyright. And that right can hardly be extinguished. And that is why you see that even if you look at some plays and everything on television, you will see that even people that are not acting, or people that they write, they give them credit. So you must give credit to whoever was part of the originality. So even if, for whatever reason, which I can't explain, somebody is not even making money from it, or the person has entered into an agreement that is not, you still must give him credit. You still must give him credit. So there are two folds now. There is the credit side, which is not about money or agreement or whatever.
It's recognition.
It's recognition. And for artists, that is even more premium. Do you understand? Because that gives them
leverage.
Leverage to tap into other things. But like I said, once there is no evidence that somebody said, I'm not part of this, and it can be established, that was part of the creation, the originality, the authorship. It can forever lay claim to its ownership.
Right.
And I mean, whatever they get at the end of the day, it too should get a piece of the pie. So that basically, and it doesn't expire. I also tell you that for copyright, for example, 70 years after it exists throughout the lifetime of the person, and 70 years after the person has died.
I see.
So if somebody lives to 80 and 70 years after, I mean, so it's children, everybody can
eat from it. Oh.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's not about it doesn't expire, it doesn't extinguish.
Okay.
You know, and that is why we even term intellectual property as a human right. Because
human right, yeah.
It's about who you are, it's your personality.
Right.
Can I remove your personality from you?
No.
I cannot.
Right.
I cannot.
Okay.
So it doesn't extinguish.
It's good to know.
But you must be sure that there is no evidence that the person had signed at one time for one reason or the other that he doesn't want to be part of them. And it's not about money.
But if there was no signatory, there was nobody signed anything.
What would have changed? I mean, his contribution is.
His contribution,
His contribution is there.
Okay.
And even if anybody decides to use that music for anything, that person must also recognize. Because if I'm a lawyer involved, I will trace the origin. And if I trace the origin and I know that person was part of it, I definitely will want to talk to that person to know what is the basis of your relationship with them. Because I don't want you to come tomorrow and come and start harassing my client that you are a part owner. Do you get what I'm saying? And I must see evidence that you have disassociated yourself through an agreement from that.
Okay, that's understandable. But what steps should a creative take to protect their intellectual property?
One of the critical things of protecting intellectual property now is the fact that we are even in a digital era. So you now discover that there are several risks associated with that. Though being in the digital era enables us to share, you look at the digital DSPs and so it enables us to share, and some of us who would have become local have become global because of the digital penetration. And so it enables us to share content, it enables us to share knowledge, it enables us to share creativity, it enables us to even collaborate across continents, but it also has its own drawbacks. So what I would say is that whatever a creative person engages in, he should look at protecting his asset, intangible asset, both of digital and on digital. So let's say offline and online.
So how do you protect online?
So when you, there are several ways, but it also has to do with technology. Essentially, there are tools online, like the digital rights management, that enables you to control how people have access to your digital content and how people share it. That's why you discover that when you go to certain sites and you want to share something, they will block the asset, they will prohibit, or tell you, present a license to show that you have the right to share. So you could actually control that too. Digital right management tools. You can also do a lot for creative people, especially people on blogs and everything. You could do a lot. You could do encryption. Yes, such that you control end to end. You control how people can take, or what quantity they can take, or how they can take it. So you more or less like you gatekeep. Then you can also do a lot. You can do watermarking.
Watermarking.
Yes, where you see
a logo.
Yes, and you see something underneath. Then you could also use now you could use some blockchain technology that definitely would want to try and see the origin and the authorship, because that sounds like an electronic record of who owns what. So so that, and but what is key is that you need to ensure that, like I said, you need to ensure that you have registered all those things. Do you understand?
Yeah.
And
You register them under the copyright
yes,
law.
copyright, trademarks, and
Right.
patent and industrial designs, all those, you
Okay.
register them and monitor. You need to monitor. I know some creative people that they have somebody sitting down on the laptop checking all over the world where their creative works
Are
are being used.
Right.
So you have to monitor. You also have to work with intellectual property experts,
Right.
so that even when such things arise, you can quickly write a cease and desist letter to intimate. I mean, to let the other person know that he's stepping out of line, and to what extent. And you also have what we call the DMCA. That is basically a United States Act and Digital Millennium Copyright Act, and basically it encourages takedown.
Okay.
So when you complain to any of these social media platforms that somebody has infringed your copyright and you're able to show proof,
So they can be served.
they will take it down until it can be resolved. So there are several ways to do that, but it has to be intentional. You have to have done your part.
Okay.
You have to use tools that are also online. Then you also have to explore anti-theft mechanisms.
So
online.
is this something an artist can do on their own, or do they require a certain body, for instance, an entertainment lawyer, to go through these processes with them? Because by the time, I'm just speaking as an artist, by the time I think about monitoring all my copyrights and everything, at what time do I have to be creative?
It's just, you see, it's only in Nigeria that you are everything. I mean, that's why, I mean, a person, if you watch any Steven Spielberg film now, I mean, if you look at the credit of any of these American films, and you see almost like 5 minutes of people who contributed.
Yeah.
You understand? So even as an artist, you should, apart from having, like you said, an entertainment lawyer, an intellectual property lawyer, you need to also have a business manager. You need, so that you can focus on where you have your competitive advantage. Because like you said, if you are the script writer, you are the producer, you are the director, I mean, definitely you can't give your best for all.
Yeah.
So for me, I just told you about one of these Nollywood actresses now that just just signed on with one of my friends' company, and I'm the lawyer that is superintending that. So that we begin to look at all the footprints of her, of whatever is happening to her online and offline, and let people know that a new sheriff is in town, so that if you need to use her, you need to get to some people and talk to them and get access. Some of those access they can give you, even if somebody looks at the potential, he can partner with you. You understand, or tell you pay an amount, or let's work out an arrangement. But for you to just take it up and use it without, and this thing is so bad, so bad that I've seen situations whereby some products that were very successful in this side, somebody just took it to the north and started using the name in the north without any recourse, and people who migrated from the south to that place thought they were eating the bread that they were familiar with here.
But it's not the same.
The two people they don't
know each other.
Obviously the one that went to the north knows this one, because he was staying here before and ate that bread. He was in Oyo. He ate that bread, and I saw the way the thing was selling. So when he got to the north, obviously it was a baker too. So when he got to the north, he established his bakery and gave it the same name. So people who went for travels or thought they were eating the same bread. Until one day somebody just said, this bread. And I think someone now brought it and said, I don't know this guy. And he had made millions of naira.
Wow.
So it's that bad that you can't be careless. So I would advise any creative person that from day one start to talk figures from your head. And that's okay, I'm sending this thing to this person, how much am I making from it? It's moving from here to here. I was telling somebody one day now that many years ago, a friend of mine got licensed for one of these confectionaries, maybe like 15 years ago, and he was paying 4 million naira for the use of the name.
Interesting.
Yes, and the brand, I'm sure for the past 15 years, they have not even opened up any of their own brand.
Yeah.
Their own outlet.
So they're just using.
They are just making money from
the name.
So you can see that at a point, and that's why I tell people, overseas you can grow a business up to a point and say, look at what's happening with Facebook and all. Grow a business and say in 5 years time, I'm tired of this business. You plan from the one that 5 years I'm going to exit this business, I'm going to sell this business in 5 years. So you build the brand. So somebody seeing you spending a lot of money building the brand, we think you don't know what you are doing. Yeah. When it's 5 years time, that brand is premium. Elon Musk didn't buy Twitter because of the name. He bought it because of the data. He bought it. You know how many people are on Twitter? And the man has several brands that he needs to sell to. So that's why, like I told you, I have a background in marketing communication, and I spent quite a donkey years there, and I find it very worrisome that I just want to use a typical case that I'm really very touchy about.
Okay.
You have a client walk into your office, and the client gives you a sheet of paper telling you that this is how my product is. These are the target audience. These are everything, and he's relying on you to transform that into something that will sell his products. Okay. There are some products that were not in existence. Let's look at the telecom, this thing. Many 30, 40 years ago, many of these telecom companies were not in existence. Yeah. It was creative people that brought it from just ordinary paper.
Idea, yeah.
And so I transform your ordinary paper to creative. I bring in creative ideas. I create TV commercials. I create this thing and every other thing. And the question now has always been, who owns the copyright?
Right.
And it's so bad now that even in Nigeria, we have clients not even wanting to pay rejection fee. That is 10 agencies get into a room and they are just giving the same paper.
Right.
And each one goes to spend his millions shooting TVCs, developing a lot of creatives. And at the end of the day, you come on board and you tell me that because you did not take me, then you will not pay rejection fees.
Yeah.
Some even go further to even say that even if for any reason they use your creative material, they are not liable. And agency heads are signing. They are signing. What would you sign? Somebody is saying, even if I reject you, don't hold me responsible if you see that Okonkwo is wearing the same trouser that I put in my own demo to you.
Right.
Or it's the same way I represented that that advert, or the same way I presented it to you. I see it. Yeah. I'm on my way to UK. I see it at the airport. And you rejected me 10 years ago or 5 years ago. And you are saying I should just go home and sleep. By virtue of the law, anything that is produced for any reason, even at a pitch or whatever, as long as there is no agreement between the client and the agency that this thing has become his own property. Do you understand?
Yes.
The client cannot claim it. And the typical thing is that if you have rejected my creativity, how does it belong to you? No, let's be commonsensical. I do a creative for you, you reject it. So why would you now be the owner of my creativity before we decide whether you are taking it or not? Because if you don't take it, it's my own.
Yeah, but who gave you the concept?
Which concept?
I'm just asking the question.
I am telling you from a creative person's point of view.
Right.
I'm a creative person. In addition, I told you I spend millions of, donkey here. It always comes in a brief.
Right.
And the brief is always on a sheet of paper. And it tells what the intention is. But it leaves a lot of room for you as a marketing communication expert to interpret it.
Yeah.
Then you now interpret it. And that's why if we have 5 marketing communication companies, we will interpret it in different ways.
Yeah.
Do you understand? So nothing there is sacrosanct. And that's why it's coming to you in the first place.
Right.
So when we express it in different ways, you are telling me that even my expression, without you accepting it, belongs to you? How? How? Then when we get into bed and you say, this is what I want, then we sign an agreement to the fact that everything that I have done belongs to you. And it is now left for me to know whether I will sign it
or not.
Not even just sign it or not, the conditions on which I will sign it.
Right.
Would I sign it and go back home to my workers and say, I can't pay you people's salary, but you are very creative. But the client likes it, but the client says he's not going to pay for it, or he's only going to pay peanuts. And if I accept that, but if I don't accept it, then he has to pay me what he has to pay.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying? So those are the discussions that should be going on. Not that an agency will allow a client to say that the development of every other thing belongs to the client. Because like I said, if he rejects it, who owns it?
Who owns it? Right.
It's still the person who developed it that owns it. So until we are in bed, until we agree that that's what you want, until we agree on the terms on which you want it, and until I sign that that is, and it must be on dotted lines.
I see. So it's very important for creatives to own their intellectual property.
Very important.
Yeah, and it's very important for them to do their findings, get some education, and get in touch with people that have the expertise to show them the way so that they don't get lost along the way. Thank you so much, sir. This was very insightful. I really enjoyed this conversation. I really would like to have you come on the show again so that we can delve deeper into this, because I'm sure a lot of people at home will have questions and experiences that they would like to share and get some form of feedback. So I'm looking forward to having you again on this show.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Unfortunately, this is as much time as we have for today.
Thanks.
And I feel totally blessed to have been a part of this. And ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of Creative Money for this episode today. And if you enjoyed this, if this episode brought value to you, please feel free to share this with your friends and your family and your loved ones. You can always reach us on our website, www.getcreativemoney.com, or on our social media platforms at getcreativemoney. You can do that. You can like, subscribe, follow, comment, and share it with everyone that you know. Thank you so much for joining us today. Until next time, get creative.